Farewell tour because I'm going to jail in September or October to a United States federal prison for a 5-year sentence. It's been already negotiated, and I know I would never take such a sentence. There's some music coming through there. Is there a way you can turn that off? Okay, thanks. And originally, by the way, my greatest crime, I've been arrested 23 times for marijuana and jailed 17 times. I've been jailed in 8 out of 10 provinces. Only Prince Edward Island and Quebec have I not been jailed. Not for lack of trying. I did smoke both those places out on my summer of legalization tour in 2003, which, by the way, I smoked out big Chonga, a 1-ounce bomber in front of the Hamilton police station just down the road here on August 25th. 2003, some of you may have been there. That would be a classic time. I came to McMaster in 2004 at Mohawk College and spoke. And in my 20 years of activism since 1990, when I first started being involved because they had banned all books and magazines in Canada about marijuana, they banned High Times off the newsstands. It wasn't available from 1987 to 1995. All grow books. RCMP went to the warehouse of Blackberry Books. Blackberry Books, which published Grow Your Own Stone in the 1980s, and seized all 5,000 copies. Nothing was available for 8 years in this country about marijuana or any kind of illicit drugs. It's still in the book, section 462.2 of the Criminal Code. And we finally, after 5 years, Umberto Arafida, lawyer Alan Young, and myself finally got the drug literature law overturned. So at least now we can get books, magazines, truthful information. That actually came about when I discovered a book called The Emperor Wears No Clothes by Jack Herrera. It's the great work of our movement. It's the seminal work, and it was banned in Canada. And I couldn't believe that in Canada the government had the right or the power to ban things that were true and factual. And indeed they can. And the interesting thing about that at the time was that the marijuana literature ban had a $100,000 fine attached to it. Now, marijuana itself is only 6 months in jail, which is a lot, or a $2,000 fine. So I found it very interesting when I started this crusade in 1990 that something that tells the truth about marijuana that's printed was 50 times more dangerous to the government, that is a $100,000 fine, than actually possessing marijuana itself. And that provided me with the greatest clue about why we are hunted down like animals all over the world, even though marijuana is one of the few things on this earth that will not kill you. Most everything that's legal will kill you. Most everything that's legal will kill you, and it's disguised as something that's good for you. Marijuana is amazing to treat things like you'll never get Alzheimer's disease if you smoke a joint of marijuana every day after age 52. There's not a single known study or single known example of anyone ever getting Alzheimer's who smoked one joint every day in their later life. And yet my mother died of Alzheimer's last year, and she would not smoke marijuana because she comes from a generation, the Depression, where she only took what doctors gave her. And nothing the doctors gave her, in the case of Alzheimer's, had any effect on her in a good way whatsoever. You'll never get cancer or respiratory cancers if you just smoke marijuana. If you smoke nicotine, all bets are off. Because nicotine, by the way, tobacco and tobacco smoke work in a very insidious way. Whenever you take in nicotine, as soon as it hits the tissues, and you can chew tobacco to get this result. You don't even have to smoke it. Nicotine cuts off the supply of blood and oxygen to the tissues. It's called a vasoconstrictor. It actually tightens up your arteries and makes them more narrow so that less blood goes through. And the blood is what delivers oxygen and nutrients to all the cell tissues. And if your blood gets cut off for any protracted length of time, you start getting lesions and cancers, which is what happens if you chew tobacco. There are ball players who were in the minor leagues chewing tobacco 10, 20 years ago, and they started to get tongue cancers and esophageal cancers and chin cancers and skin cancers around the mouth. And chewing tobacco has greatly been diminished because the evidence was so clear that it caused terrible disfiguring cancers of the face. Marijuana smoke works in an entirely opposite manner. Marijuana is a vasodilator. So instead of making the tobacco makes it tighter, the marijuana actually opens up and makes all arteries wider. And so you get more blood and oxygen to affected tissues. So for example, when you do a bong hit like that, you're taking about 8 times more air into your lungs. Now, 8 times more oxygen to your lungs would be helpful if they can use it. Normally, they couldn't even use that. You would simply exhale that amount. But when THC hits your lung lining and opens up your arteries, it can now accommodate much larger supply of oxygen, which it then delivers to all the affected areas. And the THC that you're taking in, not only does it open up your arteries so you can take in more oxygen through the lungs, but it actually cleans and shrinks tumors that it encounters on your lung lining. So while it's opening up your lungs and delivering more oxygen and more blood to the affected areas, making you healthier, it's also cleaning and shrinking tumors that it encounters on your lung. People often say, well, marijuana can't kill cancer. It can't cure it. Oh yeah, it can. It shrinks. THC, upon contact, shrinks tumors to half their size within a very short period of time, and ultimately destroys them, and then cleaning them up, and your exhaling takes all that debris out with them, out with your exhale. Marijuana is an amazingly brilliant thing. It's as though it has co-evolved with human beings, that somehow it seems to have this incredible effect on you. And by the way, people are meant to smoke marijuana. You have a cannabinoid receptor in your brain and one in your body. Only human beings have 2 cannabinoid receptors. All mammals have 1. And they speculate that when you get Alzheimer's, it's because your cannabinoid receptor is withering away. And it's true. If you don't use it, you lose it. So you have to feed your cannabinoid receptor with cannabis pretty well every day to absolutely make sure that you do not get Alzheimer's disease. Now, we're going to have a longer discussion. I will tell you that people with multiple sclerosis find tremendous benefit from cannabis. They get their sight back, they get the use of their limbs back, they actually have more control over their body. People who have epilepsy use marijuana all the time to restrain epileptic seizures. People who are taking chemotherapy for any kind of cancer find that if they smoke marijuana, they can keep their food down. A lot of elderly people are given huge numbers of prescription drugs to take every day. They have those little punch-out calendars just to remind them how many they have to take, because they have to take all the ones in this plastic box for today, and they punch them out. But a lot of people can't hold them down, especially if they're morphines or opiates or any number of things. So cannabis helps them keep their medicine down. And so on we could go. Medicine, it's natural medicine. It has very few negative side effects when people take it. So we're looking at multiple sclerosis, age wasting syndrome. We're looking at chemotherapy. We're looking at Alzheimer's. We're looking at cancer. All these things that can help. You know, on this tour I've been wearing a lot of hemp clothing, so Cannabis Sativa makes clothing, and it always has in this country. Since the 1530s, when Champlain first arrived in Quebec City, we've been growing Cannabis Sativa for use as an industrial hemp, because all the sails and riggings of the colonial period and all of the trans-navigation going across the oceans was all done with massive, huge sails, many of them on a ship, and they're all made of cannabis hemp. Before the cotton gin pin, clothing was never made from cotton until about 1740, when Eli Whitney developed the cotton gin, because cotton's a very small fiber. It really takes quite a sophisticated little machine to make that short fiber as one long fiber, so we can buy a roll of cotton in this day and age. It's a relatively modern invention. For example, when Jesus was walking around with clothes, he was wearing hemp, because Cannabis Sativa grew all over the Middle East, all through the biblical period, kenaf, sisal, and flax, linen. These are the things that people wore in the biblical period. Cotton did not exist. Cotton, by the way, was used to print books because it can be pulped into a fiber and pulped into books. And the books from the 1600s made of cotton are incredibly bright and beautiful. They don't deteriorate like pulp paper does over time. And that's what cotton was used until the period where the cotton gin was developed. So we have this fabulous legacy of marijuana being used to make clothing, cannabis being used to make clothing for thousands of years. We've got the evidence that it saves people's lives, makes life much better for all. So you wonder, well, why would such a thing be banned? And it gets even more mysterious, because marijuana, cannabis is the only thing that will not kill you in any way whatsoever. You can't overconsume it. You can't take too much of it. It's not toxic in any way whatsoever. So the mystery begins, why is it illegal? Why is something so valuable, perhaps the most valuable plant ever put on this earth, is banned and illegal, and its adherents are locked up? Even someone like me, I'm going to a U.S. federal penitentiary, rough, bruising places for a 5-year sentence because I sold seeds. I just want to remind you that the only things I've been convicted of, I have been jailed many times, but I've been convicted very few times. Many of the times I was jailed was when I was on my summer of legalization tour, and I was arrested, but I was right. There was no marijuana law, and the charges against me were dropped. The only thing I have convictions for selling bongs, promoting bongs. I didn't even know that was against the law. Promoting a bong is against the law. Selling bongs. I gave away a half gram of hashish to an American tourist once and got charged and convicted of trafficking. I passed a joint in Saskatoon in 2004 on my university tour where I came to McMaster and Mohawk on that tour.